What's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to give you my thoughts on It Chapter 2, which just came out in the recent week, and we're going to be going into it and discussing the sequel to the highly successful remake of the 1990s miniseries of Stephen King's classic horror novel. It starred Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, Bill Hader, along with Isaiah Mustafa, Jay Ryan, James Ransone, and Andy Bean, along with Bill Skarsgård and our original Kid Losers Club from the first film.
Jacob here, meeting my icon, Catherine Isabel here.
Yep, we're back again here, and I reviewed the first It movie just a couple years ago when it came out, so just search it up on my channel. You can take a look at my thoughts on the first film. I also did a review on the miniseries quite a while ago. And I overall really liked the first It movie of these new films. I thought Bill Skarsgård really did something special with the character, and really showed his unique way of mannerisms and stuff like that. Well, not drifting into what Tim Curry brought to the to the initial series that showed on TV, a couple decades ago now. But yeah, so I was curious to see how they're going to follow this up, like a lot of people were. I mean, even with the miniseries, which, on both sides of it is a bit dated these days, watching it again. But even when it was successful, and even for the people that still look upon it well, it's obvious that it takes a bit of a dip when it goes into, our characters being adults. So I was curious to see how this new version would handle it. Would they do it better? Would it falter in a similar way or different for itself? I don't know. But I'm here to say overall, It Chapter 2 I liked. Now it's actually getting a bit of a mixed response, I've noticed. I mean, my favorite YouTube movie reviewer, Chris Stuckman, he gave it a C+, which is a pretty lukewarm review from him. Not that you should trust or go 100% by every review. There's a reason we're all different people. We all have different opinions, stuff like that. I've liked a lot of movies that some consider shit. I've been mixed or lukewarm on movies that people absolutely love. So it's good to go by your own judgment, obviously, not necessarily go by a YouTube reviewer or Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. But yeah, first off, we gotta talk about it's a 2 hour and 49 minute movie or so. Round it up to 3 hours if you want. You do sort of feel that it does feel a bit lengthy. I don't think the story necessarily had to be stretched into nearly 3 hours. Now you could argue, yes, it is based on a book, and that book is like that. I remember trying to read through it in elementary and middle school and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of material and details they could have fit in there, but in terms of like a mainstream sort of streamlined audience, they probably could have found a way to condense it down to at least like a similar length to the original or something like that. The 2017 film, I mean. But really, I gotta say, there was a moment like after the first hour, or like the initial hour and a half, where I checked the time. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of seeing what people are saying. I checked my phone or my for the time, on a couple or a few occasions, just kind of out of curiosity more than anything. I was almost zoning out at one point, but it did pull me back to the movie's credit. And I honestly got a little more into it again, so it didn't hurt it for me as much as it did some people, but I still don't think it necessarily absolutely had to be 3 hours. And there is some, repetitiveness to the story structure, you could say. Because the story is, it's simple, it's straightforward. I mean, Beverly, Bill, Ben, Mike, they all are reunited in Derry, and we see kind of their where they've been these 27 years, or at least where they're at now. We see their own sort of motivations or fears tying them back to the hometown, their initial hesitations to go and everything. Excuse that notification sound. And then, they return to the town, Mike, delivers them some information about what he's, witnessed since he actually stayed there, which is an interesting perspective to have, because all of them have gone off and sort of, mentally blocked that out of their heads with what they experienced as kids. But, Mike, he's just basically been living in it, both physically and mentally the whole time, so it's a different sort of perspective and basically trauma, for the character, which I found to be pretty good. Although they don't really delve into that side of it too much, what it was like for him to just live there all those years. But yeah, then periodically, they investigate their own sort of personal problems or issues or demons, tied back to their past, and they periodically encounter Pennywise, who terrifies the shit out of them, and so come up with a plan, tied back to this ancient, possible origin of what Pennywise actually is, perhaps, and they try to figure out how to beat him. So that's it. There's not really more layers to it or anything, which is fine. That's not my issue. It's just that we have a lot of encounters throughout the film, which is what we're all here for. But yeah, Bill's there and he sees Pennywise in this, or Ben's there, he sees Pennywise doing this, or so on, so on, so on. Which is cool because it gave each character like a little spotlight, more than once throughout the movie. But it did feel like just a way to pad out the film. I don't know. Speaking of the Losers Club, I should actually talk about the cast, which for the most part was really on point. I did quite like them. Bill Hader is the guy who's been getting the most talk. He's in an HBO show called Barry right now. He's mostly a comedian. He plays a grown-up, Finn Wolfhard, or, Richie. And he is quite good. He handles most of the comedic bits, but he also ends up pulling a lot of emotion as well, and I think he is probably the acting highlight of the film, along with, obviously, like Bill Skarsgård on the other end of it. And James McAvoy is very good as always. He was really like a, top of the stack pick you could have for this movie. I think a bigger star than a lot of us were expecting when it was first announced. I myself had other actors in mind for the lead role there for Bill. I thought of, James Franco, or, you might laugh at the James Franco suggestion, but if you see him like in 11/22/63 and other Stephen King work, or some of his more serious roles that don't get talked about as much, I think he could have swung that as well. Or I thought like a Patrick Wilson, obviously, or something, but James McAvoy worked for sure. Definitely a strong lead for it, I think, even if the character was, coming maybe more unhinged than some of the other characters, for obvious reasons. And then Jessica Chastain as Beverly Marsh. I don't know, she was quite good. I really warmed up to her more and more as the film went along. I definitely prefer Sophia Lillis as the character. But again, it's kid to adult. But I do think there are, actresses that can more strongly resemble her kid self, or I don't know. I feel like there are more choices for that than there are for the other ones. Somehow, I'm not sure. Not that she did a bad job. She was, again, actually quite good. And then Isaiah as Mike Hanlon. He did the Shadowhunters show recently, and Old Spice. So I was a little surprised by his casting, but good for him. This is a big step up, I think, from that. But he was actually very, very competent in the role. He had a strength about him. kind of an assurance about him that, worked for his exposition scenes and stuff like that. And, kind of a more fragility to him when, everything was kind of coming undone near the climax. And then Jay Ryan, I don't want to say he's weak, but, coming off of, like, Beauty and the Beast on the CW and such, I feel like they could have gotten maybe a slightly stronger actor for him, because I really, really liked Jeremy Taylor in the first film. But, he grew on me, and he had a couple scenes where I was a little pleasantly surprised by him, so... And he had the actor from Sinister as well, James Ransone. Andy Bean isn't in too much, but he was alright. He didn't really require, too much in that role, though. But yeah, the cast overall was, quite good. They had nice chemistry together. It all really works, their wardrobes and everything, and so in the end, I really didn't think there was much of an issue there, and it turned out a lot better than it could have in some, angles, I suppose. And we'll talk about Pennywise, because also Teach Grant coming back as the bully from the first film. I would like to have him give a bit more of a role, or have a bit more of a role in it, I guess. But he worked for the function of the plot, I guess. Then Pennywise himself, Bill Skarsgård again killed it in the role. The best scenes are when there's no CG, there's no big effects or anything, just him, with his different facial expressions and little creepy mannerisms. You can laugh with them or at least slightly chuckle with them 1 second, and then sort of be like, oh, okay, the next. He again was very, very good here. But I almost felt like there wasn't enough of them. I feel like somehow there's more of them in the first one, or maybe I say that because he left more of an impression on me in the first one. And that's because there is a lot more CG in this. I think they had more of a budget, so they crammed in some more arguably creative visuals. They had like Pennywise manifest himself as different forms, to terrify the different characters and such, which made sense, the whole Freddy Krueger shtick and everything. But my issue with that lies, like, sometimes it'd be too much CG, or the CG itself would look a little off. And yeah, some of them are, manifestations, kind of spun off of, like, silly, not necessarily silly fears from childhood, but, things aren't necessarily meant to look, the worst maybe to you and me, but to them maybe. But still, like, the CGI quality itself, I was a little, kind of disappointed by sometimes. I feel like they could have made it look a little bit sharper than it did at times. The photo looks alright here, but even some of those, like, bigger expressions I could tell were enhanced by, whatever. Sometimes it was a bit much, and like this old woman type of thing they do in the film, I don't want to show a picture of it to not spoil it. But it's almost like too silly, and you gotta wonder if they really intended it to be that way. Probably not, for the most part. And then the ending, a lot of people really don't like the ending in the film, or the original miniseries, with the whole spider thing. They do their own version of that here, and it works and it kind of doesn't. It's kind of blocky, to me, the visual of Pennywise's final form, but I do think the climax is much more exciting and engaging than that miniseries, so I think they did redeem it a little bit, although I feel like there's some way they could change things to make it better, just kind of simplify it in a way that would work better. I don't know, more is less sometimes. Or, excuse me, less is more sometimes, you know what I mean? But yeah, overall, and then the way they, possibly defeat Pennywise, seems a little cheesy and on the nose at first, and it is, but at the same time makes sense. I don't really want to spoil it, but it makes sense, and there's a good mix of emotion, sort of suspense and danger here, and just like a stitch of comedy, and I think they actually, for the script called for, they did it well. So yeah, alright, I think, again, it faltered a little bit. We all knew it wasn't going to be as good as the first one, but far superior to the second half of the miniseries. And, it left me, for the most part, pretty satisfied, with these two films. So, yeah, my girlfriend enjoyed it too, and she's a bigger fan of the Stephen King stuff than I am, so that hopefully means something. So, yeah, if I had to rate this, I'm giving it about an 85-87%, B plus going into there somewhere. Let me know what you guys thought. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.